Why are the Democrats so party regimented? Why have there's no longer any independence in the Democratic Party? For two reasons. The first is the national leadership controls most of the money. And most congressmen now get about 70% of their money from the national party, whether it's directly from the party or from lobbyists and PACs where the spigot's turned on or off by Pelosi, but they control the money. But the other reason is the districts are so solidly Democratic that ultimately they're more afraid of primary fights than they are of the general election. So they're more worried about the left than they are worried about appealing to the general electorate. And we have to end that by having fair apportionment in New York State. And that is why it is absolutely vital to take control of the state Senate. And that's why I think that ultimately this race is really more important than any of the congressional races, because we're really running for 8 congressional districts right now, and being able to make sure that we can have fair elections in those districts. Ultimately, the answer is, of course, a nonpartisan commission that draws the lines, like they have in Arizona and Iowa, where they're prohibited from taking into account party or incumbency in drawing the lines. But in the near term, what we have to do is to take back the Senate and make sure that it's fair. States are becoming, in the United States, are becoming black holes. Michigan is a black hole right now. That cycle, that downward spiral of job loss, higher taxes, more job loss, more claims on the state treasury, less state revenue, higher taxes, more job loss that goes on and on and on till it becomes a death spiral and the state dies. Michigan is dead. They have an unemployment rate of 15%. They were in the recession before anybody in the country was. Upstate New York is clinically dead. Clinically. They should put Prozac in the water supply. Buffalo has gone down from a population of about 400,000 to about 2.25. Rochester's gone from about 175 down to about 125. Syracuse has gone down from about 150 to about 100. Utica from about 80 or 90 to about 60. And the reason Hillary was able to win that Senate seat, New York has become Democrat, a solid blue state, is because upstate has become totally depopulated. Nobody lives there. And anybody that lives there is old. All the young people have moved to Florida and made Florida more of a red state than it ever was. But that's because they're driven out by the taxes. You know, supply side may or may not work at the federal level, but it sure as hell works at the state level. You do what you do to taxes in New York and you're making Connecticut's day. You do it in Massachusetts and you're creating New Hampshire. And I submit that that David Patterson is the best governor Connecticut ever had. With the complicity of the state legislature. And you have to break that cycle. It requires a dramatic intervention. The only reason New York isn't dead is because the city has grown, because it's become a world city. And ultimately you have a world city located in an incredibly depressed state. But if the Republicans can seize control again of one of the houses, and if they can really make fundamental change in New York State, I think they can arrest that pattern of deterioration. Now, nationally, the stakes, we'll talk about this a little bit more upstairs, but the stakes in this election of 2010 are beyond belief. You can't imagine what this guy will do with 2 more years of control of the Congress.
We know.
No, you don't. You don't. You don't. When he took office, his goal was to create a European socialist state in the United States. And the way, to me, socialism is not an epithet, it's a statistic. And the statistic is what % of the country's economy, GDP, is accounted for by the public sector. And for the last 40 years, it's been 30%, state, local, and federal combined. Some years it's 31, some years it's 29, but it's been basically flat at 30%. It's now 36. And if his health care program finishes and takes full effect, it'll be 41. And the difference between 40 and 30 is really the difference between socialism and the free market economy. It's really the difference between whether you have an entrepreneurial, job-creating, upwardly mobile, ambitious country, or a country that is anesthetized to mediocrity. Since you don't all have this book with you, and we ran out here, and let me just say that if you see Jim and you give him your name and address, they will send you a book, and they will include in it a label that I will have put your name to Joan and sign Dick Morris, if your name is Joan. But this is worth kind of sharing with you because I don't want to duplicate what we'll talk about upstairs, and I want to give you a sense of this. Obama does not try to make us socialist with a cacophony of confrontation. He does it with a soothing siren song, like the sirens that attracted Ulysses to the rocks in the Odyssey. And the siren song sings, "Put aside your ambition. Don't work so hard. Slow down and live a little. Don't worry. Give the government your insecurities. Let us take care of them." But reality answers, if we go back to a nation of childlike dependence, relying on a parental government, we'll become poorer and poorer and have to make do with less and less. Government can't create jobs or wealth. It can only take from some and give it to others. The siren sings, "You are not alone in the world. You have your community to surround you and a safety net below you. We've anticipated all the vagaries of life, all of its uncertainties, and we've made provision for them." But reality answers, it's fear of failure as much as a dream of success that motivates us all to work hard and compete and succeed. If life holds no perils, there's little to get us out of bed in the morning. While we have to protect those who can't help themselves, for most of us, it's the fear of bad outcomes as well as the hope of reward that motivates our labor. The siren sings, "Give up some of your sovereignty and independence. You won't need it anymore. Your leaders will show you what to do. You must surrender what you have to the community. We're all in this together. We're a unit, an entity. We'll share the sacrifice, take care of each other, and let our government point the way." That is literally the rhetoric of the Obama campaign.
That's right.
The government does everything bad. The post office, the Veterans Administration, hospitals, inner city public schools, and if you trust them with it, it's going to be an absolute disaster. And finally, they say to you, give up your democracy. Keep politics out of this. Let the experts run it. Let the experts decide whether you get health care or not. We know the medical treatments. We know the best for you. Let the experts run the economy. Let the experts run the military. Don't have control of your schools by voters. Let the professionals run them. But the reality is that the biggest threat to our freedom that we face is no longer obviously fascism or communism or Islamic fundamentalism. Instead, what it is bureaucratism. It is the ability of a few bureaucrats who are the experts to make these decisions, be they the International Monetary Fund or the United Nations or the G20 or the Federal Reserve Board or the Department of Health. When you delegate stuff to a self-perpetuating elite in a bureaucracy, you lose political control and you really stop becoming a democracy. There's a great quote in this book from C.S. Lewis, and he says, "God save me from people that are going to be tyrants and oppress me in my own interest." If they're oppressing me to make money, at some point they'll have enough. If they're oppressing me because they're sadistic, at some point they'll give it a break. But if they're oppressing me because they think it's best for me, their conscience won't let them give it a rest. And they'll be on my case morning, noon, and night. I don't know about the rest of you, but I like